From the earliest writings of man, we know that the human race has always been divided into two groups, the haves and the have-nots. When I was a boy growing up during the Great Depression, I became obsessed with a single question: what was the invisible force, the unseen difference that separated these two groups? Being among the have-nots, I wanted to understand why, in a country where success was said to be available to all, so very few ever managed to achieve it. In studying the statistical abstract of the United States published by the Bureau of the Census, I discovered something startling. Only 10% of the men in this country 65 years of age and older had incomes of $6,000 or more per year. More than 80% of all men 65 or older had incomes of less than $4,000 per year. Only 7.6% earned between $7,000 and $10,000 a year, and a mere 3.7% earned $10,000 or more. A man often begins his working career in his early 20s, sometimes even earlier. He lives in one of the freest societies on earth. He is given more than 40 productive years in the richest, most opportunity-filled nation in history. And yet, according to the figures, only about 10 out of every 100 will be financially secure by the time they reach 65. Only 4 out of 100 will be truly comfortable. Now the question is simply this: why? If you truly want the answer, conduct your own survey. Walk down the street in your neighborhood on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Knock on doors and ask the man of each house 2 simple questions. First, what are you doing at this very moment to increase your income? That is not to ask what he hopes to earn or what he wishes for, but what he is actually doing now. Then, after the blank stare has faded, ask him the second question. How much do you plan to be worth by the time you are 65? When the silence becomes uncomfortable, quietly thank him and move on to the next house. Ask 50 men, ask 100, ask 1,000, and before long you will be convinced of this one great truth. The reason most men fail to achieve financial independence is because they seldom, if ever, engage in serious, constructive thinking about either increasing their income or defining a clear financial destination. It is as simple as that, and strangely enough, the reason it is so easy to earn far more than the average man is that so very few, are going about it the right way. This is not a crowded competition. It is a race with almost no contestants. The few who choose to enter it can all be winners. Some may finish ahead of the others, but even the man who finishes last in this race will be financially secure. More than 90% of the population never even steps up to the starting line. To prove this to yourself, answer those same 2 questions honestly. Before you began listening to this message, what were your plans for increasing your income? How much did you truly intend to earn? And how much money had you decided you were going to be worth by the time you reached 65? The men and women who earn great incomes are not lucky. They are not crooks, as the have-nots sometimes like to believe. They are not necessarily more intelligent, more gifted, or more talented than their neighbors and friends. They are not in possession of any mystical or occult secrets. And very few of them were born to wealthy fathers or grandfathers. Most of the people who earn large incomes today began their lives in exactly the same place you and I did. The only real difference is this: they decided to earn more, and they made it their business to do so. A woman who never decides to bake an apple pie for dinner will never think to look up the recipe. Without the decision, there is no reason for the action. A man who never decides to drive to St. Louis or to Nacogdoches will never search for a road map showing the way. And a man who never decides to earn more money will never make the effort to learn how to do so. People quite simply do what they decide to do. So rid yourself forever of the ancient superstition that successful people are somehow special, lucky, favored, or chosen. These are nothing but convenient alibis, and every one of them can be disproved over and over again. The reason these alibis exist is because men who fail financially are rarely honest enough to admit the simple truth that they did not truly try and they did not keep trying. In order to justify their stagnation, in order to remain comfortably seated, they invent excuses and pass them along to others. We are all self-made, but only the successful are willing to admit it. I once visited Charleston, South Carolina, a city I had never seen before. I hired a taxi driver to take me through the historic old sections of the town. I wanted especially to see the battery where that famous shot was fired on Fort Sumter. Along that beautiful drive, some of Charleston's oldest and finest homes stood proudly overlooking the bay. I remarked to the driver on their beauty. He replied, "Yes, some of those houses have 40 rooms." Then, after a moment's thought, he added, "And every one of them is owned by a crook." That is how the have-nots justify their position in life. I said nothing. After all, this is a free country, and as long as a man does no harm to others, he has the unalienable right to be as wrong as he chooses. As Thomas B. Reed once wisely observed, we must view with profound respect the infinite capacity of the human mind to resist the inroads of useful knowledge. Men like that taxi driver, and millions like him all over the world, have been holding themselves down and turning away from abundance for generations. The truth, incidentally, is that those beautiful homes along the Charleston waterfront were built by the men and women who made the greatest contribution to that city. In a moment, I am going to give you a formula for getting rich. But first I want to remind you of something important. Before a jet pilot ever takes off, he carefully goes over a checklist, item by item. He does this not only because it is required by law, but because he knows he cannot afford to trust such a critical operation to memory alone. He follows another checklist just as carefully before he begins his descent. Living successfully is at least as important as flying an airplane, and for that reason, each of us needs a checklist as well. That is why one is included with this message. I recommend that you fasten it to your bathroom mirror. Look at it as you brush your teeth in the morning. Look at it again as you prepare for sleep at night. Study each item and think deeply about what it represents. Number 1 on that checklist is the formula for getting rich, and it also explains your present position, whether you earn $6,000 a year or $60,000 or $600,000. Our rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to our contribution, our service. Memorize it. Think about it. Let it sink into you emotionally as well as intellectually. You may take a quiet satisfaction in the fact that very few people around you truly understand this principle. Here is the same formula applied specifically to your job. The money you are paid will always be in direct proportion to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty involved in replacing you. Write it down. Learn it. Make it a part of your very being. Now, to use this formula properly, 2 great rules must be applied. And the second item on your checklist is what I call the gold mine. The gold mine between your ears. The Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Archibald MacLeish once said, "The only thing about a man that is truly human is his mind. Everything else you can find in a pig or a horse." Strong words, but undeniably true. The key to your future lies in your mind. One powerful idea can make you rich, and ideas cost nothing. There is nothing done today that cannot be done better tomorrow. Next year's homes, cars, businesses, methods of manufacturing and selling will all be improvements over what exists now. And every improvement will come from the mind of someone who decided to think. What is your specialty? How many worthwhile ideas did you develop in the last year? If you continue exactly as you have been, where will you be 1 year from now? 5 years from now? Most men are simply playing a game called follow the follower. They copy what everyone else is doing, and in so doing, they guarantee their own mediocrity. So whose drum are you marching to? Never before in all of history have the opportunities for progress been so abundant, and yet most people will merely benefit from progress. A very few will create it. The question is, which group will you choose to join? If you wish to become a contributor, you must learn to think deliberately, regularly, and with purpose. Like the man who, during the Depression, grew wealthy while others failed. Each evening he would sit quietly and ask himself, how will my business be conducted 10 years from now? Then he set out to do it that way immediately. A company growing at 10% a year will double in less than 8. But a human being can improve his effectiveness by 50% or even 100% in a single year. So begin now. Reach into the deep reservoirs of ability within you and start using more of what you already possess. Here is a simple method: rise 1 hour earlier each day. That single hour gives you more extra productive time each year than most men ever use in their lifetime. Take a shower. Dress, sit down with a clean sheet of paper. At the top, write your financial goal, the exact amount you intend to earn annually. Then begin to think. Think how you can increase your contribution to match that goal. Write down ideas for improving, expanding, perfecting, and adding value to whatever it is you do. You do not need to invent a new world. You only need to improve the one in which you already stand. Try to generate 5 ideas every morning. Write them down. Save them. Many of them will be worthless. Some will be useful. But among them may be the one idea that will change your entire life. And that is how construction begins. With a thought born in the gold mine between your ears. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is not luck, birth, talent, or circumstance. It is decision. Most people never make a definite decision about what they will earn or become. Without a chosen destination, there can be no road map. Men do not drift into wealth, they decide on it, and that decision begins the movement of mind and body toward achievement. Most people move through life as though it were something happening to them rather than something created by them. They wake, work, eat, sleep, and repeat the same pattern year after year, believing that circumstance, economy, or chance is quietly deciding their destiny. Yet if you study the men and women who have crossed the invisible line between want and abundance, you will discover that nothing truly changed in the world around them at the moment of their rise. The air was the same, the streets were the same, opportunities were neither greater nor fewer. What changed was a decision. A quiet, firm, unmistakable decision that life would be different, that they would be more, earn more, contribute more, and become more than the average expects or accepts. A decision is not a wish. It is not a hope or a vague intention floating somewhere in the future. It is a mental line drawn across the map of life. Once that line is drawn, the mind begins looking automatically for roads that lead to the chosen destination. Without a decision, the mind wanders like a ship without a compass, moved this way and that by every passing wind of opinion, fear, and convenience. That is why so many people drift for 40 years and arrive precisely nowhere. It isn't that they couldn't have gone anywhere they desired, it's that they never chose a place to go. The world is filled with people who admire success, talk about success, envy success, and even criticize success, but very few ever sit alone with a blank sheet of paper and write down, "This is what I have decided to become. This is what I have decided to earn. This is the life I have decided to live." And yet, that simple act of decision is the dividing line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Once it is made, something remarkable begins to occur. The mind gathers its forces. Ideas begin to present themselves. Books, opportunities, people, and circumstances that once went unnoticed now step into view as though they had always been waiting. It has never been a question of whether success is possible. The history of mankind has proven it again and again. The question has always been whether an individual is willing to make the inner commitment, the personal declaration to himself, that he will rise above averages and mediocrity. The man who makes no decision is living by default. He accepts what comes, calls it fate, and tries to adjust his desires to fit his results. He is not defeated by life. He is simply uncommitted to it. But give a man a clear, definite, burning decision and watch what happens. He becomes alert. He becomes intentional. He begins to act as the kind of person he has chosen to be. He stops blaming and starts building. He no longer waits for permission. He moves with purpose. For it has always been true that men do not stumble into great achievement. They step into it the moment they decide, and from that moment forward their entire world begins to quietly rearrange itself around that decision, shaping each day, each thought, each action into a path that leads steadily toward the person they have chosen to become, the income they have chosen to earn, the life they have chosen to live, and the future they have chosen to call their own, beginning with a single, silent, powerful choice to be more, to do more, and to rise beyond everything they once believed possible, because a man will always move in the direction of his strongest decision, and from that instant forward, his destiny is no longer an accident but a direction, a purpose, a claimed possession of the mind, and a promise made to himself that can no longer be undone by doubt, habit, or fear, only carried forward by steady thought and unwavering belief, until the moment arrives when decision has turned into reality, and he finds himself living the very life he once only dared to imagine, simply because one day he decided, and that decision continues to echo through every hour, every effort, every step, and every rising thought, guiding him silently but surely toward the man he has already chosen to become, long before the world ever recognizes it, and long before anyone else believes it is possible except him. Our rewards in life are always in exact proportion to our contribution, our service. This is the unchanging law that governs success. When a man understands this, he stops blaming and starts building. Instead of waiting for more money, he becomes a man worth more money. Increase the value of your thinking, your skill, your service to others, and the reward must follow. Income is not a matter of luck, chance, or mere circumstance. It is a direct reflection of the value you bring into the world, and the size of the problems you solve for others. The world does not reward effort alone, nor does it compensate for intention or desire. It responds only to contribution. A man can work tirelessly from dawn until midnight, yet if his work adds little value to the lives of others, his income will remain small. Meanwhile, another may spend fewer hours but create solutions that touch the lives of thousands, and in doing so, his income rises naturally as a consequence of that expanded contribution. This truth is both liberating and demanding. It is liberating because it places control back into your hands. You are not bound by the ceiling of an employer, the condition of the economy, or the limitations of your upbringing. Your income can only grow as much as you grow, as much as your thinking expands, and as much as your capacity to contribute increases. It is demanding because it leaves no room for excuses. If the income is small, the contribution is small. If the contribution is great, the income must, by law, follow. Every profession, every business, every service is simply a channel for contribution. The teacher contributes knowledge, the doctor contributes healing, the engineer contributes solutions, the artist contributes emotion and meaning, the entrepreneur contributes opportunity and innovation. Money is not the goal itself, it is the measuring stick, the visible symbol of the invisible value rendered. When you stop asking, "How can I make more money?" and begin asking, "How can I contribute more?" you step onto a path that has no limits. The mind has a remarkable ability to expand when it is focused on service. As you look for better ways to help, to guide, to simplify, and to improve the lives of others, your mind begins to see opportunities that were always present but previously overlooked. With new awareness comes new skill, with new skill comes greater confidence, and with that confidence comes increased demand for what you can offer. And as demand increases, so does income, not as a favor, but as a natural result. Many people misunderstand wealth and assume it is reserved for a chosen few. In reality, wealth is simply the accumulation of repeated contributions over time. A person who consistently gives more than is expected, who looks for ways to do more, to be more, and to become more, cannot help but rise. The marketplace, though sometimes slow to respond, is always fair in the end. It pays in exact proportion to value delivered. This is why personal growth is the foundation of all lasting financial success. As you develop your mind, strengthen your character, sharpen your skills, and deepen your understanding of human needs, your contribution increases automatically. And when your contribution increases, income must rise as faithfully as the sun each morning, because there is no other way for it to be. Between the ears of every person lies an untapped gold mine, the human mind. Ideas are the source of all progress, all wealth, all advancement. No limitation exists outside of thought. The man who learns to sit in stillness and think deliberately has an advantage greater than any inheritance. One good idea can change a life forever. Between the ears of every person lies a resource more valuable than gold, more powerful than any machine, and more inexhaustible than any mine on earth. This is the human mind, the gold mine of ideas, the reservoir of potential that, when tapped, can transform an ordinary life into one of extraordinary achievement. Unlike material wealth, which can be lost, stolen, or depleted, the mind grows richer the more it is used. One thought, one idea carefully nurtured and acted upon can create fortune, solve problems, inspire nations, or change the course of history. Yet most people pass through life without realizing that they already possess this most precious of treasures, wandering past opportunities, blind to the wealth within. Ideas are free. They cost nothing to produce, yet their power to generate value is limitless. Every invention, every improvement, every advancement in society began as a single thought in the mind of someone who chose to think differently. The difference between those who achieve wealth, influence, or success and those who merely exist is rarely talent or education. It is the willingness to deliberate, to engage the mind, and to consistently generate ideas that increase one's contribution. A man who refuses to think, who allows his mind to idle or imitate, is like a miner who refuses to dig. The gold is there, but he will never touch it. The mind must be exercised, focused, and directed toward purpose if it is to yield its treasures. The gold mine in your mind is unique to you. No one can think your thoughts, see the problems as you see them, or connect ideas in the exact way your experiences allow, yet most people fail to exploit this uniqueness. They copy others, follow routines, and accept what is already given instead of seeking what can be created. The mind is not a passive vessel, it is a living, active engine that responds to the quality of input it receives. Feed it knowledge, challenge it with problems, surround it with ideas, and it will produce insights, solutions, and innovations far beyond expectation. Ignore it, clutter it with distractions, and it stagnates, producing only mediocrity. To use this gold mine effectively, thinking must be deliberate. Every day, at a special time set aside for reflection and planning, the mind should be directed toward questions of improvement, opportunity, and growth. Ask yourself, how can I do this better? How can I serve more? How can I contribute more value? These questions, when consistently posed, act like a drill penetrating deeper into the mind, uncovering veins of insight and potential previously hidden. One good idea applied consistently can create compounding returns over a lifetime. 10 ideas may transform an entire industry, and the mind, unlike any bank account, never runs out of deposits if it is continually cultivated. The power of the mind is amplified by observation. The world is full of problems waiting to be solved and opportunities waiting to be seized. Yet only those who train themselves to see possibilities, to connect what others overlook, and to generate original solutions will tap into this wealth. The gold mine is always present, yet its riches are only revealed to the one who seeks, who thinks, and who acts. In every street, every office, every shop, and every home, there are ideas waiting for the mind to discover them, to refine them, to turn them into results that produce wealth, influence, and freedom. The mind's potential grows as it is used. It is a muscle and a machine simultaneously, capable of infinite expansion when directed with purpose. By setting aside time each day for focused thought, by daring to imagine new ways, by asking what can be done better, the individual awakens the dormant resources within. The gold mine yields riches not because of luck, talent, or inheritance, but because thought, purpose, and action are applied consistently to the problems and opportunities that life presents, and in that application lies the inexhaustible wealth of the mind. The majority is not in the race at all. They follow routines, imitate others, and settle into mediocrity by habit. They play, follow the follower, and call it safety. This leaves the field wide open for the few who think, who innovate, who rise earlier, and who refuse to accept the common limits. Success is uncrowded because thinking is rare. Most people move through life as if they are already defeated, accepting the ordinary, settling for mediocrity, and measuring themselves against the average instead of striving for excellence. They rarely think of themselves as competitors in the great race of achievement. Instead, they follow routines, imitate others, and cling to the familiar, believing that safety lies in conformity. They march to the drum of habit, copying their neighbors, their friends, and even the people they admire, without ever stopping to ask whether their direction is the right one. By doing so, they guarantee that they will remain in the middle of the pack, never rising above, never experiencing the full potential that lies dormant within them. The truth is, competition is not what most people think it is. It is not a struggle to outdo the man next door, nor a contest to prove oneself to the world. Real competition begins within. It is the commitment to become a better thinker, a better contributor, a more capable and creative person than you were yesterday. Yet most individuals fail to enter this internal race because it requires deliberate effort, disciplined thought, and a willingness to do what others will not. They are unwilling to pay the price of rising earlier, learning more, thinking deeper, and striving harder. So they sit on the sidelines, watching opportunity pass, mistaking activity for progress, and mistaking conformity for security. Because the majority do not compete in this internal arena, the field of true achievement is remarkably open. It is uncrowded, almost entirely free for those who have the courage to enter. While others are content with what is comfortable and familiar, the few who decide to think, to innovate, and to contribute more than anyone expects can rise without obstruction. In this uncrowded race, success is not reserved for the lucky or the specially gifted. It is available to anyone willing to compete with themselves, to stretch their mind and effort to the limits of their potential. The fact that most people do not compete is what makes it possible for one person to achieve far beyond what the average imagines. The failure to compete is reinforced by a lifetime of habits. From childhood, people are trained to conform, to fit in, and to avoid standing out. Schools, workplaces, and even families reward sameness and discourage originality. As a result, most people grow up thinking that imitation is security and that being different is risky. They follow the crowd, and in following, they lose the opportunity to lead. They settle into mediocrity without realizing that the choice to do otherwise is always theirs, and that the reward for rising above the crowd is limited only by their willingness to think and act differently. True competitors understand that the world is full of opportunity, yet most will never notice it. They see patterns, connections, and possibilities where others see only routine and repetition. They innovate while others imitate, create while others follow, and contribute while others simply observe. By competing in this deliberate, thoughtful, and purposeful way, they place themselves ahead of 95% of their peers before ever taking a single step beyond the starting line. The race is not crowded because most people refuse to enter it, and the field remains wide open for those willing to think, act, and strive with intention, recognizing that the majority will never notice or care, and that the true path to success lies in competing with oneself each day, in surpassing yesterday's limits, and in refusing to accept mediocrity as a destination or a standard, because only by doing so does a man rise into the realm of opportunity that has always been present yet overlooked, waiting for the few who choose to run the race while others merely watch from the sidelines, blind to the possibilities they could claim. Success is not an event. It is a daily practice. The simple act of waking an hour earlier, writing a goal, and producing 5 new ideas each morning can alter the direction of a lifetime. Improvement is found in consistent, deliberate thought. The future belongs to the man who thinks today. Success is not something that happens by accident. It is the result of deliberate, consistent thought applied day after day, hour after hour, moment after moment. Most people move through life reacting to circumstances instead of shaping them, allowing events to determine their future rather than using their minds to create it. Yet the reality is that every accomplishment, every fortune, every advancement begins in thought. The habits you form each day, the ideas you allow yourself to dwell on, the questions you ask your mind, these shape the world you will inhabit tomorrow. The man who learns to think with purpose, who sets aside time each day to direct his mind toward opportunity, contribution and growth begins building a future that is inevitable, not uncertain. Daily thinking is a form of compounding. Just as a small deposit in a bank account grows steadily over time with interest, so too does deliberate thought build success gradually but inexorably. 1 hour of focused thinking each day, dedicated to generating ideas, solving problems, and planning action will compound into years of progress. One idea may seem insignificant in isolation, yet the accumulation of ideas refined, improved, and applied produces results far greater than most people imagine possible. Those who fail to plan and think in this manner allow life to decide their outcomes. Those who plan and think deliberately take control of their destiny and align every day with their larger goals. The process of deliberate thought begins with clarity of purpose. Every morning, the successful person writes down or mentally defines exactly what he wants to achieve. Not vaguely, not in general terms, but specifically. How much he wants to earn, what contributions he intends to make, what skills he will improve, and the impact he will have on others. By focusing the mind on these targets each day, he sets up a chain reaction. The mind begins searching for ways to reach those goals, noticing opportunities that would otherwise pass unnoticed. Ideas emerge, connections are made, and solutions appear that never existed in the mind of the passive observer. Thinking deliberately also cultivates creativity. When the mind is exercised, it begins to see improvements, refinements, and innovations everywhere. The world is filled with routines, processes, and systems that can be enhanced, yet most people fail to notice because they do not pause to think. The man who dedicates himself to daily contemplation begins to uncover hidden potential in his work, his environment, and his personal abilities. Each idea he generates, no matter how small, increases his capacity to contribute, and as contribution grows, reward naturally follows. This is the principle that connects thinking with income, effort with reward, and vision with reality. Consistency is the secret. 1 day of deliberate thought produces little, and even 10 days yield only modest results. But maintained over months and years, the process produces transformation. The mind becomes sharper, more alert, more capable of spotting opportunities and avoiding pitfalls. Habits form, self-discipline strengthens, and the individual begins to act with foresight rather than reaction. Even small daily improvements in thinking, when compounded, create results that appear miraculous to the uninitiated. The person who has trained himself to think each day consistently positions himself far ahead of the millions who drift through life, responding rather than creating, reacting rather than acting, settling for what is given instead of shaping what is possible. Daily thinking also produces confidence. The mind that is exercised regularly in problem-solving, goal-setting, and creative exploration develops certainty. Decisions come easier, risk is evaluated accurately, and action flows naturally from thought. The man who thinks every day knows that he is building his future intentionally, that every idea and plan is a brick in the foundation of his success. Over time, the accumulation of thought becomes a habit, and habit becomes character, and character becomes the architect of a life that is not left to chance but designed by vision, intention, and deliberate daily effort, creating a reality that is richer, stronger, and more abundant than any circumstance could impose because he has learned to think, to plan, and to act consistently in the direction of his chosen goals, using every day as a stepping stone toward the life he has envisioned and toward the future that he has claimed for himself through persistent, purposeful, and disciplined thought. When we look at the journey of life through the lens of thought, decision, and contribution, a clear truth emerges: success is not a matter of luck, inheritance, or circumstance. It is the natural result of deliberate action, of a mind engaged daily in purposeful thinking, of decisions made and followed through with persistence and courage. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is not chance, it is choice. The man who rises early, who focuses his mind on solutions, who seeks to contribute more than he takes, begins to shape a future that the indifferent and passive can never claim. The world is full of opportunity, yet few ever step forward to claim it because most are not competing with themselves or challenging their own limits. They follow the crowd, imitate the average, and remain comfortable in mediocrity. But the path of achievement is open to anyone willing to think, decide, and act with purpose. The gold mine of the mind, untapped by most, is waiting to be exploited. Every idea, every insight, every small improvement compounds over time to create results far greater than imagined. At the heart of all progress is a simple law: rewards come in exact proportion to contribution. The more value we create for others, the greater the reward that follows. Wealth, influence, and success are not gifts. They are reflections of what we put into the world through our work, our creativity, and our service. To succeed is to recognize the potential within ourselves and act upon it consistently, to be deliberate in thought and unwavering in commitment, to transform ideas into actions and actions into measurable contribution. Life is not a spectator sport. Those who watch, complain, or wait for permission will remain on the sidelines, while those who act, who think, and who persist steadily move toward freedom, abundance, and achievement. By taking responsibility for our thoughts, by entering the race intentionally, and by applying our skills, creativity, and ideas with consistency, we claim what is rightfully ours. The blueprint is simple, timeless, and available to all. Decide what you want, think purposefully, increase your contribution, and act with relentless consistency, and the life you imagine becomes the life you live.